So warm greetings from Devbhoomi Rishikesh and from my institution, Seema Dental College and Hospital. My topic for the day is occlusion in dental implants, a key determination of success. Very well said. The end result should be identified clearly before the project begins. It may be a civil project like making a dam. It may be a oral rehabilitation project which we are going to do in mouth. Similarly, when we are planning an implant, the end result is always the tooth. Tooth means occlusion. And patient is coming to us. I used to say in my all presentation when we are talking on implants, the patient is coming to us to get a replacement of tooth, not to get a screw in his mouth. So whenever we are planning an implant, the most important thing, in my opinion, is occlusion. We have to plan a nice and perfect occlusion for an individual, and that will lead to the success for entire implant treatment plan. So first we have to understand what is occlusion. As per the terminology of GPT-9, the act or process of closure or being closed or shut off is the literal meaning of occlusion, and it is the static relationship between the incising or masticating surface of maxillary or mandibular teeth or tooth analogs. Tooth analog means implant. But most of the time in dentistry, we are using articulation and giving the mis terminology in the name of occlusion. So articulation is the static and dynamic contact relationship between the occlusal surface of the teeth during function. So we are more concerned about the articulation when we are talking about any meeting of the surface of the teeth. Now there are different kind of occlusal scheme. Balanced occlusion. It is a simultaneous bilateral contact of mandibular and maxillary teeth on the right and left side in the posterior and anterior occlusal area in centric and eccentric positions developed to lessen or limit tipping or rotating of the denture base in relation to the supporting structure. So this is balanced occlusion. Basically, we are giving in complete denture prosthesis, whether it is implant supported or whether it is a conventional complete denture. Lingualized occlusion is the form of occlusion which articulates the maxillary lingual cusp with mandibular occlusal surface in the central working and non-working mandibular positions. Another type of occlusion is mutually protected occlusion, or we call it canine protected occlusion. An occlusal scheme in which the posterior teeth prevent excessive contact of anterior teeth in maximum intercuspal position, and the anterior teeth disengage the posterior teeth in all mandibular excursive movements. Here I will like to tell you one more definition, that is maximum intercuspal position. Earlier we called it centric occlusion, but nowadays we call centric occlusion occlusion at the centric relation, and maximal intercuspal position, as its name is telling, when the teeth are having the maximum intercuspation. And another scheme is group function occlusion, an occlusal scheme in which lateral pressure are distributed to all working side teeth in contact of MPO, where lateral pressure are directed only to the working canines. What are the pre-implant consideration? As I have told you, we have to plan end result first, but what are the consideration we should plan before putting an implant? I call it prosthodontic view of implant placement. Prosthodontic consideration of implant placement. So these are existing occlusion plane, interarch space, vertical dimension of occlusion, maxillomandibular relationship, status of TMJ, existing prosthesis, arch form, missing teeth location, missing teeth number, lip line, mandibular fracture, and soft tissue support. These are the basic anatomical and clinical consideration we should take into the consideration before planning any implant. Existing occlusion. Determine the centric occlusion relation to the centric relation. As I told you, earlier we are calling centric occlusion as a maximum intercuscal position, but now we are talking centric occlusion, whatever relation at the centric relation. And importance of this, to eliminate the deflective occlusal contacts, evaluation of noxious effect of the existing dentition, and we have to plan a proper restoration by studying existing occlusion. It is as per the study by Tanka and that in case of natural teeth, occlusal interference above 300 micromicron can cause pathologic mobility and hyperemia and PDA. So these kind of prematurities we have to remove before planning any implant supported tooth or teeth. Thus, its ability to implant to raise the occlusal interference as little as 60% of that natural teeth. When restoring natural teeth, the tolerance has to be within 20 micromicron. Therefore, the accuracy of implant has to be within 12 micromicron, 60% of that of natural teeth. So you can understand when we are planning an implant occlusion, so we have to be more precise because as compared to the natural teeth, it can accommodate only 60%. So if we are not planning proper restoration, then it called cause of the loosening of our implant. We used to call our implant is getting loose or screw is getting loose. The ultimate thing which is making it happen is occlusion. Another thing, existing plane of occlusion we should study to evaluate the relationship to the final implant prosthesis. An occlusion plan analyzer can be used on diagnostic card or to evaluate the pre-treatment condition, and intraoral occlusal plane corrections can be used. Nowadays, we are having very electronic sensitive gadgets by which we can use this kind of study in the name of T-scanners and all this. And incisional guidance has to be evaluated because if it is steep or it is shallow, it is going to affect our treatment planning. While it is steep, avoid posterior interference in protrusion movements. Otherwise, if it is shallow, then recontouring and prosthetic restoration of posterior offending teeth should be done before putting any anterior implant. Patient partially or fully adducilous for several years exhibited collapsed vertical dimension of occlusion. So we have to restore it before doing any full mouth rehabilitation or implant therapy. So we have to restore lost vertical dimension of occlusion again by the means of different kind of splints or partial trenchers before putting the final implant and crown. Assessment of this important influence another anterior arch space, anterior posterior jaw relationship. Maxillomandibular arch relationship. Arch relationship often concerns the anterior region of the maxilla and mandible. Anterior cantilever teeth require additional implants. Increase in the anterior posterior distance between implants compensate for the increase in lateral loads and moment of forces. And transversal arch relationship include posterior crossbite frequently occurring in implant dentistry. So basic concern is this: whenever we are making a leverage prosthesis, cantilever prosthesis, then we have to increase number of implant as per the space available in the arch. Interarch space. This is very crucial aspect before planning an implant because ideal interarch space is 7 mm in posterior region and 8 to 10 mm anterior restoration, anterior region for any fixed restoration. And it may vary in the different edentulous regions. If it is too much, means our resorption has occurred and we are doing partial restoration, then we have to use graft before putting the implant so that we can get the sufficient height. And because of tooth abrasion, atresion, or skeletal insufficiency, it may cause the atresion of the teeth, and migration of opposing natural dentition or prosthetic restorative pressure indicated. If arch space is there, then we have to restore it by different treatment modalities. And you know, combination syndrome, when patient is having lost posterior teeth for the longer time, then the collapse vertical jaw relation and the mandible grows forward. So this is combination syndrome. We have to treat it before planning of any implant. Arch form, presence of square arch is the common in maxillary implant patients, and actual length of cantilever depends on stress factors. And when we are putting the implant, we should plan splinting together when you're providing the cantilever prosthesis in posterior region. And when we are talking of cantilever, square arch is giving the poor prognosis if we compared it from tapered arch. Why it is so? Because if you see this picture, replacement of maxillary teeth in tapered arch form require more posterior implants than in the square arch form. In anterior mandible, a tapered arch form the permit greater cantilever length than a square arch, which has less anterior posterior distance. You can see X and 2.5X. And if you compare with the tapered arch and square arch, then distance is being reduced in the tapering arch. So that is why tapering arch is better when we are talking of cantilever type of prosthesis. And square arch form is preferred when canine and posterior implant used to support anterior cantilever in either arch. Missing teeth location. This is very important because 90% of masticatory efficacy is generated anterior to the mesial of the mandibular first molar, and 10% of occlusal forces is found on the second molar than the first molar. That is why we are not replacing second mandibular molar when we are talking of posterior implant supported prosthesis. And mandibular first molar is designed to occlude with mesial marginal ridge of a natural second molar to prevent extrusion. Can cause lateral balancing interference in the anterior guidance of occlusal stream. Soft tissue support. Endosseous tooth form implant distribute occlusal load best in the axial direction. But if the load is in lateral direction, many damage stresses are generated directly at the crest of bone, which may lead to implant failure. A concept has been proposed that a single angle change over 25 degrees will cause an implant to fail. So we will discuss it in detail when we are talking of forces. It had been concluded that improper placement can result in the compromised aesthetic and load distribution. When we are talking of soft tissue support, we are basically concerned about the aesthetic point of view. If patient is having any existing prosthesis in the form of removable partial denture or fixed partial denture, so we have to evaluate the prosthesis in the term of proper design and function, and pre-existing removable prosthesis can be used as a template, because when we are talking of occlusion and when we are talking of direction of implant, then role of surgical template is very important. And if patient is already using a removable partial denture which is perfect in occlusion and we want to replace it with the fixed partial denture, then we have to use it as a surgical template. Bone density is another very important factor which we have to consider before putting any implant, because we have to see whether bone is sufficiently compact or not. And you know, mandible is more compact than maxilla, and implant and bone contact is very crucial when we are talking of osseointegration. So we have to do the proper study of bone density, and for this we can use CBCT and other kind of modern technology. So initial bond density provides the mechanical immobilization during the healing and permits better distribution and transmission of stresses from the implant to bone interference. Increase in the quality of bone at the implant interference, improve the bone density and improve overall support system mechanism for the implant. So we have to consider bone density before putting any implant. TMJ is very crucial joint of our craniofacial structure, and unrestricted mandibular excursion, ideally the free of symptoms before implant therapy, and we have to assess it and we have to make it healthy, keep it healthy. Now, what are the factors which are affecting the implant occlusion? As I told you, I was telling you force. We will discuss force in detail because when we are talking of occlusion, means we are talking of forces being generated during different kind of function of our masticatory system, and this is mastication and deglutition which are giving more forces during the function. In speech also sometimes we are having some forces on implant. So we have to understand what are the different type of forces and which forces are good for implant and which forces are bad for implant. What are the normal forces exerted on the teeth? As I told you, bite forces perpendicular to the occlusal plane of short duration. Brief total period is 9 minutes a day. And if we calculate the force on single tooth, that is 20 to 30 per square inch, and maximum bite force is 50 to 500 per square inch. So you see, this is the time of chewing is only 9 minutes in a day. And time of deglutition, if we calculate, it comes around 18 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes. So when we are talking of use, when we are talking of force, this is the only 30-minute story in the whole day. But these 30-minute forces are very important for the health of bone. And I told you bone density is very important, and bone is the ultimate tissue which is supporting our teeth or implant. So we have to keep everything in the term of the healthy bone. And perioral forces are more constant, but they are lighter, but they are horizontal, and they are more harmful. And maximum when swallowing, it is 3 to 5 per square inch, and total swallowing time is 20 minutes a day, as I told you earlier. So what are the stress multipliers? Stress multipliers are direction of load, height of the crown, and area factors. Area factors means number of implants, size of the implant, width of the implant. We will discuss it. So stress multipliers magnify the total force generated in a system as a result of lever action or torque. We have to avoid torque, we have to avoid lever action for the success of our implant. Direction of load. Implants are designed for the long axis load to the implant body. If you see the picture A, B, C, the implant are basically can tolerate the as per A. It should be the longitudinal axis, and all stresses occur in the coronal half of the implanted bone. Binderman 1970 designed sustained lesser stress under a long axis load. So I mean to say the stresses which are going long axis to the implant, they are more favorable than any horizontal or torque movement, torque forces. Force acting on implant is a vector. The direction of occlusal results in significant difference in amount of force exerted on the implant. As I told you, longitudinal is always good. Occlusal forces are typically three-dimensional with the component. An axial load over the long axis of implant body generates a greater proportion of the compressive stress than tension and shear stress. A greater the angle of the load of the implant, long axis, the greater the compressive, tensile, and shear stress. You can see here picture A and B. Axial force result with the compressive forces, which are primarily at the transosteal site and rapidly reduce after 5 minutes within bone. While angle force result with the greater compressive loads on opposite side and significant tensile forces on the same side as the force F. I will like to tell you one thing more. In normal bone, when we are talking of in the term of normal tooth, then we are favoring tensile forces. But when we are talking of implant, we are favoring compressive forces. Now, crown height, the greater the crown height, the greater movement of the force under lateral loads. Force every 1 millimeter crown height increases force by 20%. Therefore, greater the load applied, greater the tensile and compressive stresses transmitted to the bone interface and the prosthetic component. Stresses are concentrated at the crest of the rigid implant. Crown height multiply the increased stress rapidly. You can understand this. If we increasing the crown height, then we are increasing the stress also. As I explained you, it will increase by 20% with the 1 millimeter of increase of the crown height. What are the support areas? This depends on implant number, size of implant, length of the implant, and width of the implant. Implant number, surface area of the implant support increased by the number of implants used to support the processes. Very simple mathematics, more the number, more the area. And force will be distributed over 3 abutments, result in the less localized stress with crystal bone that 2 abutments, thus number of contacts should be reduced and number of abutments is increased. This is simple Antes law. I know every one of you is dentist and must be knowing Antes law. So this is based on Antes law. We have to increase number of implants. Yes, it will increase our cost also, but ultimately it will be beneficial to the patient. Implant size and length, you know, we have different type of implant ranging from 3.25 to 5.5 mm in width, and their height or length depend on the 7.5 mm to 15 mm, and we have to select implant as per the bone available, as per the bone density. And each 3 mm increase in the height improves surface area support by more than 20%. And increase length resistance to torque and shear stress. This is again simple physics principle. The longer is the implant, lesser will be the torque forces. And by increase of 3 mm, we can increase 24% more support. But this will again depend, this is not in our hand. If we can go for 15 mm implant or 7 0.mm thick implant for every patient. It will depend on the clinical situation, how much bone is there, how much space is there. Accordingly, we will plan. Implant width, wider the root for the implants, have a greater area of bone contact, and each 0.25 mm increase in the implant diameter increase overall surface area approximately 5 to 10%. Now, what are the occlusal consideration in natural teeth versus implant? Right? If we compare natural teeth versus dental implant, natural tooth versus aggressive viscoelastic shock absorber, because we have periodontal ligament there, which is missing in implant, and decrease the magnitude of stress to the bone at the crest and extend the time in which load is dissipated. Occlusal trauma, tooth returns to original condition with respect to magnitude of movement, where implant health is compromised and failure is imminent. The basic thing you have to understand here, in natural teeth, we are having periodontal ligament, which is having a cushioning effect, which changing the direction of forces during mastication, which is working as a shock absorber. But in the case of implant, there is no such mechanism is there, and implant is being also integrated directly with the bone. So this shock absorbing mechanism and transformation of forces are missing in dental implant. Other things are good. Retention is good, support is good, stability is good, but this beautiful mechanism of periodontal ligament is not there, which is a boon to the human masticatory system. If we compare natural and dental implant, precursor signs are reversible. Initial irreversible signs do not occur. Occlusal adjustment and reduction in the force magnitude decrease stress magnitude. Here, magnitude of stress cause bone microfracture, mechanical failure of prosthetic or implant component. As I told you, this is the beauty of PDL, which is doing the adjustment. And if it is the case of implant, it may cause the failure of osseointegration and failure of the bone and implant fusion. Lateral forces are dissipated away from the crest of bone towards the apex of the tooth in the case of natural dentition. This does not exist in the immediate movement in the implant. Immediate tooth movement 56 to 108 micron pivots 2/3 of the tongue towards the tapered axis, which is not present in the implant. Now coming to the bone mechanics and occlusion. As I told you, bone is the ultimate supporting tissue in the mouth, the maxilla or mandible, whether it is natural teeth, whether it is implant, or whether it is a fixed partial denture or removable partial denture. Ultimate support is being given by the bone, and we have to maintain the bone because as per MM Diwan dictum, we have to conserve whatever is remaining. So biomechanics concern the response of biological tissues to applied loads, and dental implants are subjected to occlusal loads when placed in the function, and application of non-passive processes to implant body may result in mechanical load applied to the abutment in the absence of occlusal loads. This is, you should understand, you can see that graph, and angular offset from implant longitudinal axis is increases from buccal force consignment. So this is very important to understand. What controls the magnitude of strain imparted to the dental implants at the bone interference? This is depending on the direction of loading, rate of loading, structural density means bone density, and anatomic location means it is upper or lower jaw or it is in posterior anterior region. You know, because of the different regions, bone have the different density and duration of loading. These all are the factors which are deciding the dental and implant interference. I told you in a compressive strength are the maximum, and the strength of corticobone is greatest in compression, 30% weaker in tension, and 65% weaker in shear forces. That is why we are always talking longitudinal force, compressive force are the most favorable force, because if it is tensile, then it will make the 30% more, and side to side or shear force are the maximum damaging force. This makes 65% weaker the load. These are the cortical bone strength related to angle to load, compressive strength in megapascals. You can see the chart. Direction of load longitudinal, that is the maximum 193, and transverse it is 133, and 60 degree 133. When you see the tensile strength, accordingly it is also decreasing from 133 to 51 from depending on the direction of load, longitudinal to transverse. Cortical bone strength related to angle of load. Implant protected occlusion attempt to eliminate, reduce all shear load to the implant to the bone interference. The strength of cortical bone decreases with an increasing angle of applied load. I have shown you the figure. The implanted protected occlusion attempt to eliminate lateral angle load to an implant supported prosthesis. This is the main game changer. We have to change the direction of force. This is known as implant protected occlusion, and this we can do by the changing the occlusion table. Factors that mandate the elimination of lateral forces. Angled load increases the amount of crustal stress around the implant body, transforms the greater percentage of the force to tensile and shear forces, and reduces bone strength in compression and tension. What are the various occlusal schemes available? Occlusal goal for implant prosthodontics are bilateral simultaneous contact, no premature retruded contact position, smooth, even lateral excursive movement with no non-working interferences, equal distribution of occlusal forces, freedom from deflective contacts in intercuspal position, and anterior guidance whenever is possible. I told in the beginning, there are no specific defense mechanisms against occlusal forces in implants. I explained it because there is no periodontal ligament, and poorly restored occlusion devices gives detritus effect. Prosthesis must be fabricated as accurately as possible in order to achieve long-standing success, and occlusion should be a key factor to overall surface rate or success rate. Studies suggest that inpatient occlusal forces are controlled through neuromuscular mechanism via masticatory muscles. An impact force can have destructive effects on prosthesis and implant and supporting bone. Teeth should contact simultaneously when mandible closes into the maximal intercuspal position. These are the factors which we have to consider when we are planning occlusion in case of implant supported prosthesis. Rationale for choice of occlusal scheme. Occlusal scheme should allow this occlusion of posterior teeth in eccentric occlusion and reduce lateral stresses of dentition, which is accomplished by the mandibular maxillary cuspid mainly. In group function, lateral forces are distributed to all working side teeth, and both philosophies have been helpful in developing occlusal scheme for implant support prosthesis. We have given the definition in the beginning of lecture: canine protected occlusion and group function occlusion. We have to select any one of them. Rather, we have to follow whatever patient is having his mouth or her mouth, and if we are replacing one or two teeth in the implant. But if we are replacing more teeth, then we can plan accordingly. In this picture, you can see the canine protected occlusion. Now, what is the implant protected occlusion? Means the occlusion which protect our implant. The concept of medial position lingualized occlusion for complete denture and implant over dentures. Many of those concepts also apply to fixed implant supported restoration. Whatever we are applying in the form of conventional complete denture or over denture, the same lingualized occlusion and balanced occlusion we are applying in the implant protected occlusion when we are using the implant as a support. And when teeth are present, the maxillary denture posterior is positioned slightly more facial than the mandibular contour part. This is again as per the nature has given us. What are the salient features of the implant protected occlusions? Usage of implants of greater width whenever possible. We have discussed when we are discussing the size of implant. Wider implants are better, and uses of longer and wider implant are always better, but it depends on the availability of bone and availability of the space. Anterior teeth should disocclude the posterior teeth. Absence of lateral contact in all excessive movement. All occlusal contact more medial than the natural teeth, and a reduced width of the occlusal tape, because we want to reduce the force per unit area which is being transferred to our implant. Although many of the occlusal concepts are similar in removable and fixed implant prosthesis, but several aspects are unique to implant supported prosthesis and therefore constitute implant protected occlusion. The IPO is the width of the occlusal table is directly related to the width of the implant body, as I told you earlier. During mastication, the amount of force used to penetrate the food bolus is also related to the occlusal table width. The wider the occlusal table, the greater the force developed. But here we have to make the balance between width and narrowing. If you want to save our implant, we want a narrow occlusal table. But if you want to give a better crushing force, then we have to have a wider occlusal table. So we have to balance out between the width according to the bone density and force which we are going to transfer to the implant interface. Wider root form implants can accept a broader range of vertical occlusal contacts while still transmitting lesser force at the premature permucosal site under offset loads. So we want wider root implants, and therefore in IPO the width of the occlusal table is directly related to the width of the implant body. And in this we can use platform switching also. That is also helpful. The facial porcelain is most often not supported by a metal substructure because the gingival region of the crown is also porcelain. This, when we are designing, when we are making a crown, then we should always try in the gingival region there should be a metal crown so that we can have a better strong ceramic and chances of ceramic fracture are less. And buccal cusp on the mandible crown and lingual cusp on the maxillary crown are the functional cusp, we know it. And that is why the increase of chances of fracture are more. So we have to keep it in mind. Restoration, mimicking the occlusal anatomy of natural teeth, often result in offset load, increased stress, and increased risk of porcelain fracture. So we have to, if it is a non-aesthetic region, so then we can go the flatter occlusal table, and this will be the save the chipping of the porcelain. But it doesn't mean that we should make a 0-degree teeth or cusp-less teeth. Crown contour is again important because ITZ implant located directly under the primary occlusal contact and load it in the axial direction will minimize the effect of the offset loads. The most common implant placement corresponds to a central position in the residual ridge. Always our implant should be placed in a center of the residual ridge, and similarly we should make a tooth which is having the center of the crown in the center of area where we have placed the implant. That is why we can transfer directly to the long axis of the tooth without doing any torque kind of action on our implant. In non-aesthetic region, distal 1/2 the first molar, entire second molar are restored in frostbite, improved direction of forces. It is not applicable in all patients, but if space is less and the occlusal is having, then we can go for crossbite. When maxillary and mandibular implants oppose each other in posterior, this is very crucial and very critical condition when we are having both opposing teeth are implant supported. And so in each implant is placed under the original central fossa region. And maxillary crown is reduced on the lingual aspect and mandibular crown on the facial and lingual aspect, maintaining the same vertical occlusal dimension and reducing the overall occlusal table. I think you can understand it very clearly. What are the various prosthetic options available in the implant dentistry? This is the basically we have discussed the all aspect of occlusion which we should follow when we are making the prosthesis. And you know when we are talking of implant supported prosthetic options, they are fixed prosthetic options, they are roll prosthetic options, and we will not go in details, but I just mentioned what are the prosthetic options available in the implant dentistry. For fixed restoration, we have 3 categories: FP1, FP2, and FP3. And the restoration type is related to the contour of the restoration. FP1 is ideal, FP2 is hypocontour, and FP3 is replaces the gingival trap with pink porcelain or acrylic. The difference between FP2 and FP3 most often related to the maxillary high lip position during smiling at the mandibular lip position, And during sibilant sounds of speech, FP2, FP3 restorations often require more implant surface area, supported by increasing implant number or size or by adjusting design consideration. Can get it? In removable RP4 and RP5, you know we have different type of number of implants, and we are using bars and we are using cantilevers. I will not go into details. And when we are talking of full arch fixed prosthesis, should follow mutually protect occlusion scheme. In protrusion and lateral exertion, total absence of posterior contact, and two or more implants should share any lateral force, and lateral force should occur as a forward and include the canine. Full arch fixed prosthesis, edentulous mandible. In this, we are using the we are joining the implants to get the better effect and exert transitional movement on medial and retraction during opening and cleaning, and sufficient number of anti-implant of acceptable length and anterior posterior distance often replace the mandibular teeth with one piece rigid bilateral posterior cantilever till first molar region. This we are using the bar to unite the different implants. This is full arch fixed prosthesis, 7 to 8 implants to support proper complete implant prosthesis, and 2 separate units are suggested in mandible for a fixed restoration of a fixed prosthesis on natural teeth. Okay. Full arch fixed prosthesis for edentulous maxilla. Flexure of bone is not in the concern. 8 to 10 maxillary implant most often are required for 12 units fixed prosthesis opposing a fixed dentition on teeth and implants with moderate to severe stress factors. Single tooth restoration, we have to follow centric contact, light in casual intercuspation, equal in maximum intercuspation, no contact during excursive movements. Occlusal surface should be smaller buccolingually, and occlusal contact should be centered over implant. Partially edentulous multiple implant with partial denture, centric contact, light in casual intercuspation, equal in maxillary intercuspation, no contact during excursive movements. This is possible when there is an immediate disclosure with natural canine. Anterior fixed partial dentures, we have to follow centric contact, light in casual intercuspation, equal in maxillary intercuspation. The goal should be anterior groove function, place contact on multiple implants. If missing canine is replaced, avoid immediate disocclusion. Avoid load on single implant during excursive movement or center. This is a very crucial aspect if you want to have a long-term implant. These are the standard of different types of osseointegration treatment. Edentulous, fully bone anchored FPD, and optimal occlusion MPO. Edentulous overdenture, balanced occlusion, class 3 or class 4 partially edentulous, freestanding FPD, and groove function occlusion. Class 1 or class 2 partially edentulous, freestanding FPD, and mutually protected occlusion. Now, how to do the occlusion adjustment? This consists of modifying tooth anatomy to obtain a good occlusion. Occlusion adjustment must be performed in the upper and lower arch jointly at the same time and on both sides. This is very crucial and important to understand. We should not reduce one tooth or single tooth in the upper or lower arch or one side. That will cause the unbalanced occlusion in the term of orofacial musculature. And nowadays we are finding there are so many orofacial and pain, neck and shoulders which are occurring due to the unbalanced type of occlusion or upper lower contact teeth. So we have to be very careful. All of the following adjustment can be done when checking a case prior to laboratory work or once it is placed in the mouth or in a finished case of readjustable occlusion. Technique: double colored thin articulating paper or black market ribbon, and the patient goes from CR to MI serial types. mandible in normal occlusion class 1, the distal lower inclines and the medial upper inclines and the medial upper inclines contact the condyle centriculations. And see here, these are the cuspal distal inclines and active cusp outer inclines in the case of mandible and inner inclines. So you can see the dark points. In maxilla, it is mesial cusp inclines, active cusp outer inclines, and inner inclines on different areas. So deepening fossa, this is the ideal thing. Maxilla and mandible, if the cusp contact floor of the fossa, it will create large contact surface avoided. Spare the lateral cusp marks while eliminating the intermediate zone, which will cause loss of active material for chewing and will decrease efficiency. Deepen the fossa while preserving its lateral aspect, which will permit preservation of cusp surface. At the end of this stage, adjustment of a greater number of black contact point, not surfaces, will appear on the occlusal surface. In the presence or absence of excessive contact in anterior teeth must be checked using the closure. Nowadays, we can use T-scanner also. And I think Dr. Prafulla will talk in the next lecture about T-scanner, but that is his favorite topic. And anterior guidance we have to maintain. The anterior guidance should be as flat as possible to avoid the overload in the anterior teeth in the lateral exertion and protrusive movement. No posterior teeth should contact when the guidance is in function, which is always checked with red rule. Okay. Eliminating interfaces, non-physiological contact that appear in the anterior and posterior teeth in lateral protrusive excursion. Using red-driven, have the patient go through working and non-working and protrusive movements. Next, place black ribbons and have the patient close to MI, maximum intercuspal position, and eliminate all red marking except the guide marks of the anterior disclusion. So, we can conclude, objective of implant supported occlusion is to reduce the noxious occlusal load on the bone implant interference and implant processes. To establish a consistent occlusal philosophy to maintain implant load within the physiological limit of individualized occlusion, and finally to provide long-term stability of implant and implant processes. Therefore, implant principles protected occlusion are one of the very important criteria for implant as well as the prosthesis longevity. Ultimately, we have to protect our prosthesis and we have to protect our implant. Both belong to us. It should not be the oral surgeon part or this is prosthodontic part. Ultimate aim for the better service to the patient, and we have to do a teamwork. And I have told you in the beginning, we have to plan end result first, then can be a successful person in any field. So dentistry is no exception. Implant dentistry is no exception. So we have to plan our occlusion first beforehand for the success of implant supported prosthesis of any kind. Thank you for your patience listening.